While vacationing in London, a young woman and her father stopped to take what they thought would be a sweet, unforgettable photo in front of Tower Bridge. But when she looked at the picture later, what she saw made her heart drop, and it set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. Before we dive into this chilling discovery, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this kind of content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It was a crisp morning on the Queen's Walk in South London. 18-year-old Elisha Ellie Gibson was seeing the city for the very first time, wide-eyed and soaking in every sound, color, and detail. Her dad, Henry, walked beside her. This trip was their chance to reconnect as a family and make some memories worth holding on to. "Dad, we should travel like this more often," she said, smiling at the Thames. Henry laughed. "If you can ease up on your online shopping, we might actually afford another trip next year." They shared a laugh, warm and carefree, the kind you only get when life feels peaceful and full of promise. As they strolled, the stunning silhouette of Tower Bridge appeared in the distance, framed perfectly against the clear blue sky. Just ahead stood a man operating a sleek little photo booth, the kind you usually see at weddings. Spotting their American accents, he approached with a cheerful pitch. "Fancy a souvenir? Magnetic print and a digital copy, just £9.99. Ellie lit up. "Oh, Dad, can we? It'd be the perfect way to remember today." Henry smiled and gave in. They posed. Ellie leaning into her dad's arms, both beaming, the bridge and the river sparkling behind them. A picture-perfect moment. The photo printed instantly, and Henry paid the man. But as he looked at the image, something shifted in his face. A flicker of surprise. Or was it fear? He slipped the photo into his pocket before Ellie could see. "Can I see it?" she asked, confused by his reaction. "Let's head back. Your mom's waiting," he said quickly, already walking away. As they made their way to the Airbnb, Ellie couldn't shake the weird feeling in her gut. Why had he reacted that way? Was the photo bad? Was he just tired? She decided to let it go. They could always go back and take another picture. Their apartment on Beret Street was cozy and filled with the usual vacation clutter. Lisa, Ellie's mom, welcomed them warmly. "Bring me something tasty?" she joked, and Henry handed her a fresh croissant. Ellie flopped onto the couch, still buzzing from the photo shoot, and pulled out her phone to check the digital copy. "Dad's keeping the printed version all to himself," she called out playfully. "At least you got the digital one to post," he teased. As Lisa nibbled her pastry and Ellie began editing the photo for social media, Henry, always the restless one, stood up. "I'm going to take the trash out, maybe get some fresh air." "Go for it," Lisa and Ellie said, not thinking much of it. That was just Henry. Always moving, always needing space. With Henry gone, Ellie zoomed in to adjust the brightness of the image, and that's when she saw it. In the background of their photo, something was there, something that should have been impossible, and that one tiny detail was about to unravel everything. At first glance, the photo seemed like the perfect memory. A bright day, a happy pose, Tower Bridge in the background. But then something unusual caught Ellie's eye. A green trash bin, slightly out of place in the picturesque scene. That wasn't what unsettled her, though. It was what was on the bin, a missing person flyer. The image was small, but the headline was clear, "Still missing," and beneath it, the face of a young girl. Ellie squinted. The photo was grainy, but something about the little girl looked strangely familiar. She couldn't quite explain why. It was just a feeling, like a memory you can't pin down. Shrugging off the discomfort, she adjusted the filters on her phone and uploaded the photo to social media, captioning it with something cheerful. Just then, her mom called from the kitchen. "Ellie, honey, let's get going. Your dad's probably already waiting." Ellie grabbed her bag, still thinking about the flyer, and followed her mom out. But when they stepped outside, Henry wasn't there. Odd, but not alarming. Henry had a habit of wandering off. "He'll check in soon," Lisa said with a knowing smile, and they started strolling along the Thames, retracing their morning route. Eventually, they ended up right back where the photo had been taken. Tower Bridge in the distance, and the photo booth still buzzing with tourists. and there, beside that same trash bin, was Henry. But what stopped Ellie in her tracks was what he was doing. Henry was removing the missing person flyer. Lisa looked concerned. "Henry, what are you doing? That bin's filthy." But Ellie asked the question they were both thinking. "Dad, why are you taking that down?" He froze, then looked up with a too-wide smile. "Oh, this? Just some poor family trying to find their daughter. I didn't want you to see it and get upset. You've always been sensitive about these things. Remember those news stories back home that used to give you nightmares?" Ellie frowned. Something about his explanation felt off. Too fast, too rehearsed. Why remove the flyer instead of just walking past it? How did he even notice it before she did? But before she could ask more, her mom was already fussing over him, pulling out hand sanitizer and urging them to keep moving. Ellie nodded, pushing down her doubts. Maybe he was just being his overprotective self again. They spent the rest of the afternoon exploring London, and the tension seemed to fade, replaced by laughter, sightseeing, and the city's rich energy. For a while, Ellie let it all go, until it came back with a jolt. As they strolled past Big Ben, Ellie's phone buzzed with a flood of notifications from the photo she'd posted earlier. She was about to close it when one comment caught her attention and stopped her cold. It was from her best friend back home. "OMG, Ellie, that missing girl in the background looks just like you. Like, seriously, she's your mini-me." Ellie's stomach dropped. Her fingers hovered over the screen as she zoomed in on the background of her own photo. There was the flyer again, blurry, but the girl's face. It was like staring into a mirror from years ago. Henry's voice suddenly snapped her out of it. "Ellie, over here! How about this place?" He was pointing at a charming little restaurant with flowered balconies and rustic outdoor seating. Ellie blinked and forced a smile. "Sure, that looks great," she said, though her thoughts were anything but calm. They sat down at a cozy table, the metal chairs scraping the pavement. Her mom scanned the menu while Henry looked relaxed. But Ellie couldn't stop staring at the picture. Not the view, not the food, not the menu. Just that one blurry flyer in the background, and the face that looked a little too much like her own. Ellie stayed glued to her phone, her thumbs moving quickly as she typed a casual-sounding reply to her friend, doing her best to hide the uneasy tremble in her chest. "Ellie?" Her dad's voice broke through her focus. His tone was sharp this time, laced with something almost worried. "Everything all right? What are you reading?" Startled, Ellie quickly locked her screen and tucked the phone away. "Sorry, Dad. Just got distracted," she mumbled, grabbing the menu and trying to appear normal. A cheerful waitress came by to take their order, her light British accent dancing through the air like music, but Ellie barely noticed. Her thoughts kept circling back to that flyer, to the face of the little girl, to her friend's comment. As food arrived and cutlery clinked gently around the restaurant, Ellie felt like the world was moving in slow motion, like she was watching a movie where something was about to go very, very wrong. Then suddenly she spoke. "Dad," she said, cutting through the soft rhythm of lunch, "can I see the missing child flyer you took down earlier?" The impact was instant. Henry's fork slipped from his hand and hit the plate with a loud clatter. His face, once relaxed in the sunlight, tightened like someone had flipped a switch. "The flyer?" he repeated stiffly. I'm not sure I have it anymore, sweetheart. It might have blown away or fallen out of my pocket." Ellie's eyes narrowed. She knew she'd seen him fold it up and put it in the pocket of the jacket now hanging right there behind him. "But I saw you tuck it into your jacket," she said calmly, watching him closely. Henry reached back, patting the pocket half-heartedly. "Sorry, it's not there anymore," he said quickly, too quickly. "It's probably for the best anyway. You'd just get upset if you saw it." Lisa, silent until now, finally lowered her fork mid-bite. "Wait, flyer? What flyer?" Her voice was casual, but her eyes, they held a flicker of something else. Unease, confusion, maybe even suspicion. Henry waved a hand dismissively, almost theatrically. "It's nothing," he insisted. "Just some random poster. Let's not ruin our holiday over a scrap of paper." But Ellie couldn't let it go. His nervousness wasn't just unusual, it was off. She leaned forward slightly, trying a new angle. "Do either of you have any childhood pictures of me on your phones?" The question was innocent, but the reaction wasn't. Henry froze. His hand tightened around his napkin until his knuckles went white. "Why?" he asked, too fast. Ellie forced a small smile. "Because that girl on the flyer? My friends keep saying she looks like me, like a mini version of me. I thought it'd be funny to compare." Henry's reply came out flat, defensive. "That's ridiculous. You don't look anything like her." His tone caught Ellie off guard, too firm, too final. She pressed on, trying to keep it light. "Come on, Dad, you have to have at least one old photo of me. Can I see it?" But Henry's face stiffened even more. "I don't, sweetheart," he said, his voice softening like he was reading from a script. "I cleared out my phone memory before the trip, moved everything to the home computer." Lisa chimed in, a beat too late. "I don't have any either, love." Disappointment settled over Ellie, but not just that. There was something else growing inside her now. Doubt. Why was her dad dodging every question? Why had a simple request for an old picture suddenly become so complicated? Trying to clear her mind, Ellie glanced toward the window. And that's when she saw it. Across the street, in Potter's Fields Park, a woman was putting up a flyer. The same missing person flyer. The same little girl. Ellie's heart stopped. "Look," she said, pointing out the window, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's putting up another one." "There's someone putting up more of those flyers," Ellie said, pointing across the street. Henry and Lisa turned their heads in unison, too synchronized, too slow, as if they already knew what they were going to see. Their faces drained of color. It was like watching someone see a ghost in broad daylight. The woman in the park turned slightly, revealing her face fully. And in that instant, Henry erupted into a sudden coughing fit, loud and jarring, his shoulders shaking. Lisa froze, her fork mid-air, eyes locked on the woman, wide and unblinking. Ellie stared at both of them. "Do you know her?" she asked softly. "You both look like you've seen a ghost." "No," they replied, together, their voices overlapping, too fast, too rehearsed. Right then the waitress arrived, blissfully unaware of the tension slicing through the table. She laid their meals down with a smile, the scent of fresh herbs and warm bread filling the air, but Ellie couldn't even look at the food. "Let's eat," Henry said quickly, trying to reset the moment. "Ellie, if you want to take a picture, now's the time." Wordlessly, Ellie stood and snapped a photo of the table. Just a habit. Her mind was miles away. When she looked back toward the park, the woman was gone, vanished, as if she'd never been there at all. They ate in silence. The clink of cutlery was the only sound at their table, awkward and loud in the quiet. Ellie pushed food around on her plate, her thoughts spiraling. The flyer, her dad's strange behavior, the woman, her mom's anxious silence. Nothing was adding up. After the meal, as the plates were cleared and the waitress thanked them with a smile, Ellie tried to break the heavy silence. "So, where should we go next?" Her voice was soft, uncertain. To her surprise, Henry replied almost immediately, but his tone was weary. "Why don't we just head back to the apartment?" Ellie blinked. "Really? You? The guy who always wants to keep walking? Keep seeing things?" Henry gave a weak shrug and a tired smile. "All this food's making me sleepy. Not as young as I used to be," he said, waving vaguely. The excuse didn't land. It felt hollow. But Ellie nodded anyway, her mind already spinning with everything that didn't make sense. They paid the bill and stood up. And that's when Ellie noticed something else. Her parents weren't moving like people who were tired. They moved like people who were rushing, urgently, anxiously. They began the short walk back to the Airbnb. London's beauty surrounded them. Stone streets, grand old buildings, whispers of centuries in every corner. But Ellie couldn't take any of it in. Her mind was focused only on one thing, the growing list of questions her parents refused to answer. Then, as they approached their building, her breath caught. The woman was there, again, right outside their apartment. She was placing another flyer on a streetlight, her movements careful and deliberate. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held a grief that seemed to stretch back for years. Ellie didn't think. She just moved. She crossed the street and gently tapped the woman's shoulder. "I really hope you find your little girl, ma'am," she said quietly. The woman turned, and her eyes locked onto Ellie's. There was a pause, a beat. Then something changed. Her eyes widened. Her expression shifted from confusion to recognition. Ellie felt it too, like a spark in the back of her mind. This woman looked familiar, not from the trip, from something deeper, something older. Before Ellie could ask anything, she felt hands grab her shoulders and yank her back. Henry and Lisa were suddenly beside her, frantic, pulling her away. "What are you doing?" Lisa hissed, her voice strained and tight as they dragged her into the building's lobby. "You can't just approach strangers like that." "I was just being kind," Ellie snapped, breathless. She looked, but she stopped. Her parents' faces weren't just angry. They were terrified. The elevator ride up was silent, the soft ding of each floor the only sound. Ellie stood between them, staring ahead but thinking furiously. Why were they so scared? Who was that woman? Why did she look at me like she knew me? Inside the apartment, no one spoke. Henry dropped his keys on the counter. Lisa walked into the kitchen but didn't open the fridge. Ellie stood in the hallway, feeling like she had just crossed an invisible line, and that whatever lay on the other side was going to change everything. Back inside the apartment, Henry and Lisa moved around with a strange, forced calm, putting things away, straightening the room, every motion a little too controlled, like they were trying to distract themselves from something heavier. Henry slipped off his jacket and draped it over the couch, then unbuttoned the collar of his shirt. "We're gonna lie down for a bit," he announced, voice overly casual, too cheerful. "Maybe we can go out again in an hour." Before Ellie could say a word, they were gone, bedroom door shutting with a soft click that somehow echoed like a slam in the quiet apartment. Ellie sank onto the couch, her mind spinning. She picked up her phone and opened the comments under the photo she'd posted. The replies were still coming in, and more than a few mentioned the same thing. "Ellie, that girl on the poster looks exactly like you." "Wait, is this some kind of joke? You sure you're not secretly British?" She tried to laugh it off, replied with a joke, threw in a smiley face, but her hands were cold, and the twisting in her stomach wasn't going away. Then her eyes landed on something that stopped her breath. Henry's jacket, still resting on the sofa arm, innocent, ordinary, but somehow it felt like it was watching her. Almost without thinking, Ellie reached for it. Her fingers trembled as she checked the pockets, and then froze. There it was, the flyer, still there, and next to it, the magnetic photo from earlier that morning. Heart pounding, Ellie glanced at the closed bedroom door. Behind it, she could hear the low hum of her parents' voices, muffled and indistinct. She had to move quickly. Ellie hurried to her own room, closing the door behind her as quietly as possible. She sat on the edge of her bed and unfolded the flyer, her fingers shaking. The paper felt rough, heavy, like it carried more weight than it should. She looked closely at the photo now, no longer blurry, no longer digital. The little girl's face stared back at her, big eyes, sweet smile, frozen in time. Then Ellie noticed something in small print at the bottom of the flyer. "Missing since 2005. She gasped. That would make the girl her exact age. Her heart thundered in her chest. This couldn't be real. It couldn't be. But something in her gut said otherwise. Ellie needed proof. Something to confirm, or deny, what her mind was racing to piece together. Then an idea hit her. She opened her dad's social media profile, scrolled. Post after post, birthdays, vacation photos, random quotes, and then she reached the older ones. There, a photo of her from when she was maybe 7, a little older than the girl on the flyer. She zoomed in, and she knew. The resemblance wasn't just striking, It was unmistakable. Her heart felt like it stopped. In that moment, sitting on a rented bed in a foreign city, everything Ellie had believed about her life began to crumble. Why was that flyer here, in London? Why had her parents acted so strangely all day? Why didn't they want her to see the flyer? And why had they lied about not having childhood pictures? Something was wrong. Very wrong. With shaking hands, Ellie took a close-up photo of the flyer. Then, carefully, she folded it back along the same creases and crept back into the living room. She returned everything exactly as she'd found it. The flyer and the photo tucked neatly back into Henry's jacket pocket. Her fingers moved like she was handling glass, each motion deliberate, sacred, heavy. This wasn't just paper, this was a key to everything. She walked toward the bedroom door, stopped, rested one hand on the handle, the other hovered, ready to knock. She needed answers, even if they came wrapped in more lies, even if they got angry, she had to know. But just as her knuckles reached for the wood, she heard voices, muffled, urgent. She froze and leaned in. The wood was cool against her cheek, but what she heard chilled her even more. The wood was cool against Ellie's cheek, a sharp contrast to the heat rising under her skin as she strained to hear the voices behind the bedroom door. Her heart pounded so loudly, she feared it might drown out the conversation, but the words came through anyway. "She keeps asking about that missing girl photo," Henry's voice said, tense, panicked. "There's no way she could find out, right?" Ellie's breath caught. Her body went cold. "It's either we tell her," Lisa replied, her voice low, filled with resignation, "or one day she'll find out on her own, and when she does, she'll hate us." Her words landed like a punch to Ellie's chest. "We've loved her enough," Henry said, desperation seeping into every word. "She won't turn on us." There was a pause, long, heavy, and then Lisa spoke again. "Henry, we kidnapped her." Silence. "This whole trip was a mistake," Henry whispered. "Coming back to London was a mistake." The world tilted. Ellie stumbled back from the door as her breath came in short gasps. Her knees buckled slightly, and without meaning to, her hand hit the door handle. Click. The door creaked open. Henry and Lisa turned. Their eyes met Ellie's. Everything froze. The air itself seemed to stop moving as they locked eyes, Ellie trembling in the doorway, her parents' faces etched with panic and disbelief. Except now, they didn't look like her parents at all. They looked like strangers. "Mom? Dad?" she whispered, the words sticking in her throat. They tasted like lies now. "What were you talking about?" Henry's face went pale. He tried to recover, stumbling over his words. "It wasn't about you, sweetheart. It was about a neighbor's kid. We were just worried and—" "Stop lying to me!" Ellie's voice cracked, loud, raw, and broken. Tears streamed down her face. "You've been lying all day, all my life. I'm not a kid anymore. Just tell me the truth." Henry visibly crumbled. His shoulders sagged, the energy drained from his body as if her words had knocked the air out of him. "It was for your own good," he said weakly, his voice barely above a whisper. "We can explain." "You'd better," Ellie snapped, her voice like ice. Her arms wrapped around her chest like she was holding herself together, barely. And then they told her everything. The Airbnb's living room became a confessional, the cozy lighting now exposing every lie, every betrayal. Piece by piece, the truth spilled out. Henry spoke first. "It was Hyde Park. You were 3, a busy summer afternoon. Your parents were talking to another couple, and you were playing by the ice cream stand." Lisa picked up the thread, tears streaking silently down her face. "I dropped a drink near your mom, just to cause a distraction. I smiled at you like I was someone you knew. I told you I'd get you ice cream," Henry said, his voice cracking. "You held my hand. You didn't cry. You didn't know." They told her how they'd watched her family for days, how they flew to the US the next morning, how they used fake documents to change her name from Sarah Wells to Ellie Gibson, how they built a life, on a stolen identity. Each word cut deeper. Ellie felt like she wasn't even inside her body anymore, like she was watching this happen to someone else, someone whose entire childhood had been a lie. The room blurred at the edges. She whispered, "You're insane. You're criminals." Henry reached toward her instinctively, as if touch could fix this. But Ellie pulled away, flinched. It was small, but it said everything. The bond Ellie once had with Henry and Lisa was shattered beyond repair. "We love you," Henry pleaded, his voice trembling. "We gave you a better life." But Ellie's pain had turned into rage. "Living together doesn't erase the fact that you kidnapped me," she snapped. "You've lied to me for 18 years. I'm going to the police." Fear overtook Henry's face. "I'm afraid I can't let you do that," he muttered darkly, stepping forward. Ellie backed away. "You've lost your mind," she whispered. "You can't keep me here!" As she turned to run, Henry lunged and grabbed her arm hard. "I can!" he growled, eyes wild. "Because I love you too much to lose you." Struggling in his grip, Ellie realized her life was no longer her own. She was now a prisoner. "I'm not your prisoner," she screamed, shoving against his chest. "We just want to talk," Henry insisted, his voice cracking. "We've built so much together." But the word love rang hollow. They had stolen her, renamed her, raised her in a cage disguised as a home. "I hate you," she cried. "You're liars. You're criminals." And then Henry snapped. His hand flew. The slap echoed like a gunshot. Blood trickled from Ellie's lip as she stared at the man she used to call her father. In a blur, he dragged her to the bathroom, shoved her inside, and locked the door. "Let me out!" she screamed, pounding on the wood. From the other side, Henry's voice twisted between threat and desperation. "You'll stay in there until you understand, until you apologize." Ellie sank to the cold tile floor, sobbing. The bruises on her face weren't just from Henry's slap. They were from the truth finally breaking through. Outside, Lisa stood frozen, her hands shaking. Then, she moved. In the kitchen, she grabbed a cast-iron pan. Without a word, she returned and struck Henry from behind. He crumpled. Breathing heavily, Lisa dropped the pan and rushed to the bathroom, fumbling with the lock. When Ellie saw her, she recoiled in fear. "I'm sorry," Lisa sobbed. "You have to go. Go to the police. Report us." Ellie stared at her, stunned. "Why now?" Lisa's voice broke. "Because there were only two ways this could end, and I couldn't let him keep you like this." Tears streaming, Ellie nodded. She grabbed the flyer and the photo, the only proof of her real identity, and ran. The streets of London blurred past as she fled, heart pounding, mind racing. The city no longer felt exciting. It felt dangerous, foreign, but she didn't stop. Finally, she saw it. A police station. She burst through the doors, bruised and breathless. "I need to report myself and my parents," she said, holding up the flyer. "I'm this missing girl." Officers sprang into action. She told them everything. The abduction in Hyde Park, the forged documents, the lies. They listened, then collected DNA. Just as Ellie began to absorb it all, the door opened, and the woman from the flyers walked in. Tears filled her eyes. "I knew it was you," she whispered, rushing forward. Ellie collapsed into her arms. Her real mother. A man followed, Edric, her real father. They held her tightly, years of grief and hope flooding the room. "We never stopped searching," Nessa whispered. "You were taken so fast. We never got to see their faces." They sat together, sharing memories and pain. Officers confirmed the DNA match. Then came more news. Henry and Lisa had been arrested. Ellie asked to see them. Despite everything, she needed closure. At the station's booking window, she saw them. Pale, broken, defeated. "Ellie," Lisa cried, "we're sorry. We never meant for it to end like this." Henry nodded. "We loved you. We still do." Ellie pressed her hand to the glass, torn between betrayal and buried love. Later, back in a quiet room with Nessa and Edric, Ellie struggled with the emotions. "I still love them," she admitted. "I wish I could just hate them, but I can't." That's not wrong, Nessa said gently. It means they gave you love, even if it came from a terrible place. As they prepared to figure out her next steps, Nessa handed Ellie an old photo, a baby smiling in London. This is your first home, she said. It always will be. Ellie nodded, her voice quiet. Thank you. I'm not sure what's next, but at least I know who I am now. Outside, London buzzed with life, unaware of the girl who had just found hers again. And for the first time, despite everything she'd lost, Ellie could finally breathe free.